we've been able to bring you some folks as we, watch this ceremony go on and try to understand and how to think about this and what perspective we should take going forward. And I know that there's a lot of folks, particularly those who are representing um, our Hispanic communities, Latino, Latinx communities that are watching this kind of with a mixed bag here. So I'm really interested in how we would think about that. If you've been engaged with color commentary for a long time, you know that we've got some great guests that come on, and one of those great guests that we've brought on several times to speak into lots of this, work around how do you think about organizing and protest, but then also to speak into just some of the ways that the Latino and Latinx community might be experiencing life and experiencing this moment. One of the guests we brought in has been the Reverend Dr. Alexia Salvatierra, and so we're going to bring her in and engage with her with some conversation as we watch the rest or watch some of this inauguration here. So let's welcome in Dr. Salvatierra. Hello, Alexia. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning, Marcus. I've been better.
Yeah,
I've been
I
better.
imagine everything I know about you that this would be an interesting day. So let us know, like, what are you feeling? Where's it coming from?
Well, the last time that Donald Trump was president, he led an administration that was more anti immigrant than any administration that I've experienced in my 40 years of working with immigrant communities. And it was anti immigrant in a way that violated both international law and any set of ethical principles. So we're expecting not only more of the same, but more of the same on steroids
Mm,
to go along with the rhetoric. And I want to name that when we are dealing with this administration on immigration, we're not just dealing with President Trump, who obviously says many things that he doesn't follow through on. We're talking about Stephen Miller, who
mm,
is much more focused, much more conscious around policy, much shrewder around policy, more strategic, more informed. And the kinds of policies that he led and pushed in the first administration were horrendous. And he's excited. He feels like he has carte blanche now.
mm.
And so we are expecting a wave of terror.
Yeah, it's that conversation of terror, right?
Mm.
So as I've talked to folks um, who represent the immigration community, um, there's been sort of and obviously a section of that group that is talking about terror. Um, but I know that there's a particular type of immigrant that seems to be in the crosshairs more than others, right? Because we've got a lot of immigrants that are here in the country who've overstayed visas and things of that nature, but that doesn't seem to be where Steve Miller and the crew is focusing their efforts. Is that true?
Well, not when it comes to Stephen Miller's. He
Okay,
is most interested in the border, but he is anti all immigrants. And you're
gotcha.
right. Roughly half of the people that are here undocumented at this point did not come across the border. They overstayed a visa. So, yeah, immigrants who are here without sufficient documentation come from all over the world. And the focus of the rhetoric is the border. But Stephen Miller is much broader in his anti. For
Mm,
example, last time he underfunded and slowed way down family applications from everywhere in the globe. So no, he's on it.
yeah,
He
yeah.
wants no immigration. And
Mm,
so, the focus is the rhetoric paints everybody who comes across our southern border as a terrorist, a criminal, rapist, somebody who is coming across without legitimate reasons and needs to be thrown out. And anybody, not just anybody who's coming across currently, but anybody who's ever come across the border undocumented. So people who've been here for 20, 30 years as part of the fabric of our society are all marked for deportation according to the mass deportation rhetoric. But actually we expect changes across the board that affect everyone in the system or anyone that has anything to do with the system. Just another example under Stephen Miller is he appointed a bunch of immigration judges that had no experience in immigration and no knowledge of immigration. So, he was just like, no, we're gonna shut this place down.
Yeah, yesterday Trump gave something in his speech. He said 52% of immigrants from the border participated in crime, which I thought 52% is an egregious amount. And
you can't get fact checking anymore, right?
You can't get fact check. So I would have loved for him to have cited that, because I'm like, where are you pulling that data from? What do you mean by illegal activity? What,
so
because that's the stuff that's creating the terror.
Right. There's two statistics you should know. One is that criminals are about 1 to 3% of the population, and immigrants are lower than the rest of the population, and undocumented immigrants are lower than that, just so that you have that picture in mind. But there's this federal crime statistic that they throw around of 14%, and that includes all people who've committed immigration violations.
Right.
So,
okay.
Okay, which are actually technically not crimes in most states in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
In Texas, there's a different system where they're now considered crimes. But a number of immigration violations that are civil immigration violations have become criminal violations in Texas.
So,
but still, that's the 14% figure. So no, it's completely anti-immigrant scapegoating. That's how it is.
It does sound like that. What, from a church point of view, from the Christian community point of view, who sees the issue as, how do I care for my neighbor who is my immigrant, who is an immigrant, who's stepping into what feels like an era where they're a target, to say it lightly. What would you say is some of the best ways for a church or the church to respond or to be helpful?
So there are two really, there are three actually really powerful networks right now that if people want to help, they need to be aware of and support in different ways. So there's the Sanctuary Movement is back, and the Sanctuary Movement, has been around in this country. The most recent version of the Sanctuary Movement has been around since the 1980. I was part of it. That's why when I was a youngin'. And that's English speaking primarily. And it's run through Church World Service through Noel Anderson. And those are mostly English speaking congregations that have decided to stand with people facing deportation. So the Sanctuary Movement will do a variety of things, from legal help and direct service to sheltering people that want to be sheltered in churches to a whole long list of different ways of advocating for immigrants and standing with immigrants. So churches can certainly join the new Sanctuary Movement. There'll be a pledge coming out soon, but just reach it through Church World Service. And they'll have a website up soon as well. In Spanish, there are a number of us who have come together as national organizations and regional organizations that we're a coalition of coalitions. And basically, it's called La Iglesia que acompaña al migrante, which is the church that accompanies the migrant. And we're giving monthly webinars to update people on what they can do. A number of our churches, immigrant churches, are always helping immigrants. Bottom line, we minister with the immigrant community. And so we're understanding what we need to do to make sure that we can make a credible religious liberty argument if we're in some way attacked legally because of our work in supporting immigrants. We are also working with non-immigrant churches to set up sister church programs and immigrant funds, immigrant support funds that different kinds of churches and denominations can set up, so that churches that are immigrant led and are walking with immigrants can access some support to help in that process. Because there's definitely going to initially go after people that are in the system in one way or another. So they have their addresses. If people are not at that address, it will be much harder to find them. So they're going to go to people at their home addresses, but they're also, we have a lot of experience in this, going to do what's called collateral detention, which means that if you happen to be in the same place, if you happen to be visiting somebody or living with somebody who is on the list, who they have an address for, you will be picked up as well if you don't have your papers with you, or if you don't have adequate papers. So we know that's going to be the initial move. And, obviously if people just live in a different place, they're not going to be as easy to find. But if you have been in this country for multiple years, you've been working, you've been part of the fabric of your neighborhood, you may even own your house. And that's really difficult. Nobody wants to leave, but that's what you're going to have to do. The sort of second phase that we expect is to end the various programs through which people are here legally so that they suddenly become illegal when they've been legal. So people that are here on humanitarian parole, people that are here on temporary protected status, which means they're in the process of being vetted to be considered refugees. The administration has made it very clear that they're going to try to end those programs as soon as possible, and certainly not renew the ones that are ending, because they have a certain time limit for any country that people come from. So if you're from Venezuela, you have a certain time limit through which you can be accepted into this country through humanitarian parole or temporary protected status. And those basically have to do with your country is in such a terrible mess that to be faithful to our commitment as a country, international commitment to receive refugees, that we're going to consider that everyone coming from that country, because the country is in such a horrible situation and people are being persecuted violently, that they can come while they're trying to figure out, while that country is trying to stabilize, and while individuals are trying to explore whether they have an individual case. That bar is much higher for an individual case. So temporary protected status, for example, exists for Haiti, which, Haiti is a nightmare right now, right? So temporary protected status exists that people can be here from Haiti while they're exploring whether they meet the individual criteria for asylum or refugee status. Those time out. So he's definitely not going to renew them when they time out. Although former President Biden did extend a few of them, but he's also talking about just ending them before they time out, which means that, let's say you're from Haiti and you're working under a work permit and you're living in St. Louis and part of a substantial Haitian community that the larger community of St. Louis really values because they needed them to work the jobs. They needed them to start the small businesses. So let's say you're there and you're doing that and your family's there. Maybe you've even had a child since you've been here who is currently an American citizen. But your program is going to end and your process of vetting will end with it. And you will just be shipped back to Haiti. Unless, of course, you leave your house and go move somewhere else and try to live in the shadows. So those are sort of the immediate threats that we're looking at. And when I say you're in the system, I don't mean that you've necessarily committed a crime. Someone is in the system who has what's called deferred deportation, which is what all the dreamers have. That means that, you're tangled up in our ineffective, illogical, inhumane immigration system. And it's recognized that you really have a legitimate case, but your legitimate case can't be considered because of some regulation or other that you're trying to struggle your way through. And so, you get to go while you're fighting your way through the courts on this, you get to go every year and show that you haven't committed crimes, that you're supporting your family, and then you get another year to keep fighting because these processes take forever. He's basically indicated that there will be no deferred deportation. So when I say you're in the system, I don't mean you've committed a crime. I mean, you're mixed up in this crazy system and trying to figure your way out through with lawyers. And at least the early indications are that all those people have a target on their back. And we don't know about the dreamers because the dreamers are a politically delicate football. And so he has not named them specifically, but in fact, what they have is deferred deportation.
Right. Yeah. And that's really good info. I know we'll have a friend of ours who is an immigration lawyer that does some work down in Houston. That'll be in here just to kind of give us even more insider baseball as much as she can, for sure.
So let me go back to what the church can do is, I want to say when I'm where the fires are in Southern California, which
right.
has been another horrendous nightmare, and a horrendous nightmare for immigrants on top of, we've got
On
two
top of
fires
that.
going at the same time.
Yeah.
But there was a point during the fire when they couldn't contain them. And a fire captain said, look, when you can't contain a fire, you have two priorities: rescue people and hold the perimeter. And I feel like as the church, that's where we are. Rescue people wherever possible, hold the perimeter. Try not to allow them to separate children from their parents. Figure out what the bottom line is that you can defend, and defend that. And when I say rescue people, I don't just mean physically through helping them perhaps find a new place to live, or legal support, although legal support will be of minimal use from what they're saying. But, we should still look at it, right? There are places where people can fight legally. So there will be those kinds of things, but there's also spiritual and support. There's also trauma-informed care, where we try to help people hold on to well-being and shalom in whatever way they can, individually and together, to hold on to their relationship with the Christ who overcomes sin, death, and the devil, and get some comfort and strength and support in the midst. So every one of our monthly webinars starts with a spiritual reflection that is designed to help people with anxiety and depression. So we really recognize that the church has that role as well.
And how do they get connected to this, Dr. Alexia?
So, and then I mentioned that there are 3 networks. The Evangelical Immigration Network is still alive and well. They're primarily focused on refugees. That's really their core concern, but they have a strong network, and they have a strong network in terms of accurate information. So Evangelical Immigration Table, La Iglesia que acompaña al migrante, which if somebody's interested in getting more information about that, they should contact me. And then this New Sanctuary Movement through Church World Service. And
how would they contact you to get the information?
Well, I'm at Fuller Theological Seminary, so it's really easy to find me. I'm right there. You can get
Fuller.edu.
Yeah, fuller.edu. I'm right there under faculty. Alexia Salvatierra at fuller.edu. And so anybody can find me if they want to. And I'm happy to connect you up. La Iglesia que acompaña al migrante. Our webinars are in Spanish, but we always have translation into English if people want them. But really, we're focused on our community. And if English is your dominant language, you really may want to get connected with the New Sanctuary Movement, which is through Church World Service.
And look, and this is a community work that you're talking about, that the church and anybody can be doing it, because obviously at the legal standpoints, we're going to have some restraints going forward. So I really appreciate you being able to come in and just remind us, particularly the church, as we're thinking about this, what we can do to engage in what seems to be inevitable. It's just at what level it's going to do that. So man, Alexia, always excited to get you in here and appreciative of your time. And you have said it. I know that the fires have affected a lot of our friends out there in Pasadena, and obviously we've had professors that have lost their homes and things.
A number of our professors have lost their homes.
Yeah,
and others of us, we have friends staying with us who lost their home, and a number of us who didn't lose our homes have friends staying with us indefinitely. Yeah. And then we also have keep us in prayer. The winds are coming back today. And where these extremely dangerous winds are coming back today for another 2 days. So we don't know what's going to happen.
It seems like it's like you said, it's a fire everywhere. And we find ourselves fighting on lots of different fronts. And so we're so thankful for just the front that you continue to battle on with the church in the midst of this conversation. So Alexia, always good to talk to you. Thanks for jumping in. Again, our prayers are with you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you for doing this, for giving us an opportunity, all of us, for a different voice to be heard, a different voice in the church and of the church to be heard. So may God bless.
Well, thank you. We'll talk to you the next time.
Next time. Okay. Sounds good.
Bye, Alexia.